everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of History You Didn't Know But Should. I'm Ray,
I'm Chris.
and today we're going to be talking about Billy the Kid, born Henry McCarty, also known as William Bonney. He was a fugitive from justice for many years for various killings in the New Mexico territory. Uh, the governor there in New Mexico put a bounty on him, and lawman Pat Garrett was tasked with the job of bringing old Billy the Kid in. And Chris, today we're going to be looking at the fate of Billy the Kid and what actually happened to him. And some of our listeners may be surprised to know that even though we as historians sort of have our view, there are some people who have some questions about what happened to Billy the Kid.
Yeah, and it also goes to show what can happen to you when you have a late night snack attack and you want to go after a piece of beef. Because the reality is that good old Billy the Kid at the age of 21 was in search of beef, and that kind of led to his utter demise. However, what is interesting is not only who shot Billy the Kid, but did they actually shoot Billy the Kid?
Yep.
And so that just adds a whole different level to it because we have a possible murder of a murderer or possibly a murderer who really knew how to escape a lot of things and ultimately was able to escape an attack on his life and actually went out and lived the rest of his life in obscurity without anybody ever knowing.
Yeah, and Billy the Kid was good at escaping. He had been arrested in 1880 by Pat Garrett and in a place called I had to look at this twice just to make sure I was right. Stinking Springs. I don't know why they would name a place Stinking Springs, but apparently they did. He was arrested there, he was convicted, and he was sentenced to hang in 1881. But before that could happen, he escaped and in the process killed two deputies. So this is not someone who's used to staying in jail. This is someone who when he's locked up, when he's cornered, he escapes and he does what he does has to do to get out, and then he's on the run yet again.
And, we have to understand that the story of Billy the Kid is really a story that comes from a lot of various different sources. And one of the sources, this is during the time where sensationalism really starts to flood. We talk about the era of newspapers coming out and William Randolph Hearst and Joseph Pulitzer and how they were competing to sell newspapers. And how do you sell newspapers? You sell newspapers with really cool stories. And this sensationalism in which you just fabricate a variety of different things. And so a lot of his life is just basically we don't know if it really happened. We don't really know who he was. But the other thing is, you think about this. Billy the Kid's death is as mysterious as Elvis Presley's death. It's just one of those things where, people are just constantly trying to figure it out by asking the question, is he alive? Is he not alive? And what a great story if you're Billy the Kid and you go up to a bar and you say, "Hey, let me buy you a drink." "Sure, thanks. Who are you?" "I'm Billy the Kid." Wait a second. I thought I read that you had died. I thought somebody had killed you. And you say, "No, that's just a story." Well, how do you believe what you believe? And so you're right. And the confusion is that details of Billy the Kid's life is sketchy, and much that has been written by him is this sensationalism. And I do think to add to that is that there are people who continue to just change the whole narrative of Billy the Kid and his life and kind of what happened. So, did Billy the Kid get shot and escape? Did Garrett shoot the wrong man? I don't know.
Well, let's get into that a little bit. You mentioned earlier that Billy the Kid had gone out to get him some food. So we go to Fort Sumner, New Mexico, the New Mexico territory. It's not a state at this point. Pat Garrett enters the home of a guy called Pete Maxwell, and he goes to Maxwell's home because he thinks Billy the Kid is there and he thinks he's going to find Billy the Kid. So he goes in there and he sort of hides in the darkness, waiting on Billy the Kid, hoping he would show up. And lo and behold, in the very early morning hours, sure enough, in the room walks someone that Garrett believes was Billy the Kid. He walks in, like you said earlier, he had gone out to get him some food. You said beef?
Yeah, because he had actually been camping out outside of the house, according to, Garrett, and that Garrett and two officers had kind of been on the hunt, as you
Right.
say, and they thought he was at the house. And so what they discovered is they saw this man, and I really like how they describe him. They said that he had a broad brimmed hat, a dark vest, shirt, and pants, and that he walked right past them. And they didn't understand it, but they just saw the man going inside looking for a piece of beef. And so Garrett says, "Hey, you deputies stay outside in case he runs out the back or runs out the
Yep.
front. And I'm kind of going to go inside and take care." And so Garrett walks in where Maxwell is in bed, and he begins talking to him. And Maxwell says, "Billy the Kid, yeah, yeah, that guy was around, but he's not here anymore. I don't know where he is." And then next thing you know, there's a surprise because out of nowhere, a figure appears with a gun and also a butcher knife and starts speaking in Spanish.
Yeah, what
And
does he say? Who is it?
you want me to speak it in Spanish? I hope
No,
not.
no, I don't. No, I'm
And
not.
Maxwell just says, yeah, and Maxwell says, oh, that's him. Well, why is it in Spanish? Because an interesting thing is that Billy the Kid, he spoke English, but he also was very fluent in Spanish. And so that adds to the whole thing. And, and so Maxwell says, hey, that's the guy you're looking for. And you're right. He gets right up to where Garrett is, and uh, all of a sudden we have a major confrontation.
Yeah, and Billy comes in the room. Billy the Kid comes in the room, and I mentioned at the top of the show, and I do want to go back to this. He was born Henry McCarty, and he changes his name to William Bonney, and that William Bonney's. When I think of Billy the Kid, that's the name that always pops in my head, not the first one. I don't think I've ever heard that name before. Maybe I have and just have
Well,
forgotten it.
it wouldn't be interesting.
No, no, no. Bonnie's
Billy the
more,
Kid keeps you engaged. It keeps you interesting.
yeah,
The other one is it's
yeah,
like Ray Shepard, right?
yeah,
Nick
exactly.
Cage. Yeah.
Very, very forgettable. Um, but so Billy walks in the room with Garrett. Garrett's watching him, and like you said, Garrett sees him, thinks he's armed, and immediately, Billy says, "Who is it?" Because Billy doesn't recognize Garrett in the room because it's so dark and everything. And immediately, Garrett fires twice. One bullet strikes Billy the Kid in the heart, and the other, um, I'm not sure what happened to the other bullet, but he strikes Billy the Kid in the heart and pretty much kills him almost instantly.
But yes, instantly, but as they go and start examining things, it's funny that Garrett basically says there was a struggle or two, there was a little strangling sound as he gasped for breath, and I love how
Mhm.
Garrett finally says, and the kid was with as many victims. Basically that he has met his death. And when they start examining the scene, when the investigation begins, according to Garrett now, they found that he had a lot of bullets in the gun, and that one was in the chamber, and that the safety had been off. And so Garrett was thinking, "Oh my gosh, if I had waited just 1 second or something of that nature, I might be the one on the floor instead of him." But they do that investigation. You have the coroner that comes in and says, "Let's investigate," and all of a sudden, and the coroner says, yes, without a doubt, that's Billy the Kid. And Garrett, what you did was justifiable homicide. And so they immediately put Billy in the ground,
Yep.
thinking they're going to just move on. But it's interesting that they just kind of went ahead and buried him. I wonder if they did it to kind of keep the the not the groupies, but the people that are really intrigued, or to kind of keep it from them going and trying to get Billy the Kid or his possessions or something of that nature.
They probably wanted to keep it a little quiet, but of course, by the next morning, news starts spreading pretty quickly as to what happened. So Billy the Kid's now in the ground. Now we come to the conspiracy theory aspect of this. So Pat Garrett says, "I've killed Billy the Kid," holds on to that. So there are those who believe that Garrett did not shoot Billy the Kid in Maxwell's bedroom at Fort Sumner. There are those who believe that he shot the wrong one, someone maybe who looked like Billy the Kid, but was indeed not Billy the Kid. And the idea is that Billy the Kid saw what happened, left, and sort of laid low from 1881 until the late 1940s when a guy called Brushy Bill Roberts, there's a name for you.
You
Brush,
know what? I won't forget that name.
nope. Brushy Bill Roberts is a Texas man who claimed he was none other than Billy the Kid. So you mentioned earlier, walking up to a bar and introducing yourself as Billy the Kid. That's effectively what this guy did. Now, what he was doing was he was seeking a pardon that had been promised by Governor Lew Wallace a number of years earlier, I guess, for Billy the Kid. And Bushy Bill, excuse me, knew some of the details of Billy the Kid's life that weren't necessarily widely known at the time. He spoke Spanish, and he did somewhat resemble Billy the Kid. And this has led some people to say Billy the Kid was alive in the 1940s.
I- But then you have the other thing is that he was buried in an unknown grave,
Right.
where so to keep these hawkers and all these people from gumming. And we can't figure it out today because we don't really know where he was buried. The pallbearers who kind of put him in the ground, they went out and were asked to locate the spot where they had buried Billy the Kid, and they picked out three different graves. They started and said, "He's buried here." Well, nope, wrong one. He's buried. Well, nope, wrong one. Well, let's try the third one. And so it's impossible to tell if any of those were really Billy the Kid or not. And the thing is that there's so many different things to examine with this. I just wonder though if Garrett, why did he hide the body? Because that's basically what, in other words, he did, right? I mean, he hid the body. Why not? Why hide the body? Don't you want everybody to know that you're the one who killed Billy the Kid?
Yeah.
Or is it possibly that he really screwed this one up and it wasn't Billy the Kid?
Yeah, and the conspiracy theory is sort of exactly what you're talking about. It's after midnight, it's dark in Maxwell's room. Uh, there's no, I guess you could say, real obvious identification of Billy the Kid's body. No photograph, obviously. Burial happens quickly. Mm, that allows room for conspiracy theories to start. And this guy, um, Brushy Bill, as they call him, I guess was able to use that sort of unclear or uncertainty, some of the uncertainty there to claim that, I'm Billy the Kid. I think that sounds good. But Chris, historians who've studied this, um, the life of Billy Kid, the death of Billy the Kid, they're not convinced. They think, yes, Billy the Kid died there in Maxwell's room in 1881. But the conspiracy theory lives on.
But isn't that what conspiracy theories are designed to do? Is to
Yeah.
live on. I go back, I mentioned Elvis. I mean, Elvis is a huge thing. There are some who still think that Elvis is alive today, that he's a preacher out there
I
somewhere, and
thought,
he's
wait. I thought he was pumping gas.
Well, see, he might be pumping gas. He might, that's his part-time job. He's a
Oh,
bivocational. And there's, all kinds of conspiracy. I mean, you pay attention to today society, and I'm going to butcher this quote, but just recently, the Vice President of the United States said something to the effect, "I believe in conspiracy theories that are true." And so you have that statement that's being made that supports conspiracy theories.
mhm.
And it really hurts history because it doesn't allow for there to be a story told, good, bad, or ugly, but the right actual story that is told. I mean, because if you think about this, the story has two different effects, because when we think about Billy the Kid's death and how he died or if he died, we forget the actual life of Billy the Kid. I mean, 21 years of age when this
Yeah.
is going on. But Billy the Kid wasn't an angel.
No.
Billy the Kid was not some saint that we should say, "Oh my gosh, what happened to him?" He was a vicious murderer. He was a person who, kids shouldn't be part of his name. I mean, because he was pretty rough. And so, but you miss that part of it because we're focusing on, oh wow, there's a who done it. Is he still there? Is he alive? What happened? To the point where I saw something that they tried to in 2015 in New Mexico to issue a death certificate for Billy the Kid, and that officials rejected that petition. And it went all the way to the state Supreme Court, trying to get a petition saying that Billy the Kid died on this particular day in this particular manner. The guy even had a list of the witnesses who saw the outlaw's body after his death and before his burial. And yet the reality is that in 2015, long after this has taken place, people still hold out, not hope, but hold out belief, possibility that Billy the Kid didn't die the way that Garrett said that he did or that Garrett performed.
Yeah, the idea that he lived to the 1940s, maybe early 1950s, that history. I think sometimes you mentioned it doing damage to history, and I think it does because people get caught up in conspiracy theories instead of listening to good history. Um, but I think it's sort of this idea that, well, yeah, these historians, history people, they say that, but we know better than them, and that is that he didn't die there in 1881, but much later. And you were talking about Elvis, but there are others this has happened to. Hitler. I listened to an entire podcast of an episode about a year or so ago where it was talking about this theory that Hitler escaped Berlin and took a submarine to South America and lived out his days there. And that's a conspiracy theory that has found legs over the years. But think about Kurt Cobain as well. He's another one that there has been and what's the hip hop artist
Oh,
guy
Tupac, right?
Tupac, yeah, who died in the 1990s. There's been that. And then, in the past number of years, there's been John F. Kennedy's son. What was his name?
Robert.
Who died in the plane crash?
No, John F. Kennedy Jr.
John F. Kennedy Jr., that he really didn't die. And there was the whole QAnon conspiracy that he was going to sort of come back.
Jimmy Hoffa.
Jimmy Hoffa is another
He's
one.
buried in the White House, and they thought they were going to find him when they tore down the ballroom.
Well, they didn't, or if they did, they didn't tell us.
Well, let's talk about right now. You and I are in the midst of a winter storm warning that is
Yeah.
about to come, and the conspiracy theorists are saying that this is going to be a historic record of 25 inches of snow. Where we are, we've never seen 25 inches of snow in 5 years, much
Right.
less in one snowfall. But it's out there because in nowadays society is leaning more towards conspiracy theories. I would dare say that social media is a hub for
Oh.
conspiracy theories.
Oh yeah, social media just feeds it. I mean, it's the algorithms there on social media. They feed the algorithms feed controversy, it feeds conspiracy theories, it feeds anger, it feeds all of that stuff. And it just and so I would wonder if there's more people who believe conspiracy theories today than maybe in the past because of the influence of social media. But
Well, so here we are, coming to the end of the podcast. You have to make your decision. Did he die? Was he alive? Where are you?
I think it was Billy the Kid Garrett shot in Maxwell's house that night. I think it was.
And
Um,
whatever happened to Maxwell? Like, first of all, what was Maxwell doing letting him in his house? And second of all, why was he hiding behind a door? And why was Maxwell in bed?
well, it
And
was
why
after
did
midnight.
Garrett, did he ring the doorbell? I mean, or did he just walk in? I mean, there's just so many things here I have questions about.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that probably he just sort of went in and Garrett sort of went in the room and told and asked Maxwell what was going on, and I don't know that he had much of a choice but to go.
Was it worth that Slim Jim?
I don't know.
When I
hope it,
did, for
I hope
Billy
it
the
had a
Kid, the answer
crunch.
was no.
I hope it had a crunch. That's all I'm going to say. All right,
No, I
Chris,
just
go ahead.
sorry. I get fascinated by the little things of this because, I mean, you have to ask yourself, why did the deputy stay outside? Why did he tell him to stay outside to guard the doors? I mean, there's just so many questions. Garrett was not really the most honest individual either.
No. And he had been sent, like I said early on, he had been tasked with bringing in Billy the Kid. He had been tasked with that. Governor Lew Wallace of the New Mexico Territory had tasked him with that. So that was his job. That was his mission to get Billy the Kid. And I guess he did.
Well, and how bad does it look if you go back to the governor and you say, got the wrong guy there, Gov?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
I
true.
mean, so he has to go back and at least justify, I've got somebody, put him in the ground real quick. Let's hope
Hmm.
that's him.
Yeah. All right. Well, the fate of Billy the Kid. Well, I say, what do you say? You asked me, what about me? What about you?
Yeah, I think Garrett got him.
I do too. Yeah, I think
A
sometimes that
great story.
yeah, it's a great story. I think it's like in October, what you now call Scaretober, all those stories and stuff we talk about. I think a lot of them just, they start with a core event that actually happened and they run from there. And so I think that's probably what happened there. And this guy who showed up in the 1940s, Brushy Bill, I think he was just somebody who, you know, knew some of the doubts and took advantage of it. So, all right. Well, Chris, great episode of History You Didn't Know But Should. We encourage our listeners to share this episode with their family and friends. Give us a like on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Until next time, I'm Ray.
I'm Chris.
Talk to you later.